Hi and welcome to this drag and drop split stack tutorial on SwapPop Gaming. This tutorial built on top of my previous drag and drop tutorial. And if you have not seen that, please check it out. The link is on the screen right now, or you can find the link in the description. In that tutorial we went through how to build a basic drag and drop function between two drop zones. Now, in this tutorial we're also going to take advantage of a counter widget that I built in the counter widget tutorial. If you haven't checked that out, you can click on the link on the screen, and that link is also available in the description. So let's take a look at what we're going to build. If I press play, you will see exactly the same thing as you saw in the end of our drag and drop tutorial. So I can drag items back and forth. However, if I press the shift key before I start dragging, I will get this counter widget on screen. This widget will give me the option to choose how many items I would like to drag over to the other side. If I click down on the widget and chooses a number lower than the original number, it will allow me to drag that number over, and we can see that the remainder will stay in its original place. Another thing I want to show you is that if we drag over an item that already exists in the drop zone, it will not create a new line or item. It will instead update the number of the existing line. Okay, we got some stuff to go through here, so let's get started. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is check that the shift button is pressed. First of all, let's open the drag and drop operation, and we're using the my item drag and drop. As you remember, these variables inside the drag and drop operations are the variables that we are passing on through our drag and drop, and we want to know if we press the shift button when we start the operation. And therefore, we need to have a variable. Let's add a boolean named shift. This also needs to be instance editable and exposed to spawn. I'm going to compile, we're going to save this, and now we can just close this. So let's open our dragged item. This is the item that we are dragging, and we're going to go into our graph here. And here we have our create my item drag and drops. We're going to right click on this, and we're going to refresh node to get our shift boolean. So what we want to do here is we want to get our player controller, as all inputs are going through the player controller. So get player controller. And from the player controller, we're going to drag and get our input key down. We want to get the shift key, so we press this little keyboard and then we press the shift key. And this return value is going to be true or false. We're going to pass that into our drag and drop operation. So whenever we drag and drop, we will have the value true or false if the shift button is pressed. So I'm going to compile, I'm going to save this. Let's close this. Now let's go into the counter widget that we created in the previous tutorial. You can find that in the description. Let's go into the graph here. First of all, we need to create a few new variables in here. And the reason for that is whenever we are dragging over an item with the shift button, we are moving the dragged item creation from the drop box into this counter widget. And therefore we need access to all information needed to create the new widgets. We're going to have the item name. And this is, of course, is going to be of a type text. And all these need to have instance editable and exposed to spawn. The next one is starting amount, and this is to keep track on what the original value was before we change it with our amount variable. And this needs to be instance editable and exposed to spawn. The next thing we want is the from widget. From widget. And this is going to be of type user widget. And it's going to be an object reference. And of course instance editable and exposed to spawn, and another one, and this is going to be the to widget, and of course we have the user widget there, and instance editable and exposed to spawn. Let's compile and save that. We're going to go back to the designer here, and we're going to remove this text blocks because we are not going to use it anymore. This was just to show that the conform button actually works. So we are deleting that. Go back to graph, And in the confirm section here, we're going to remove these things because we don't need it right now. We're going to do some other things with this confirm button. I'm going to compile and save that. All right, let's go back to our drag and drop, and we're going to open up our right drop box. I'm going to start with that one. We're going to open the graph here and go to on drop function. All right. So we're going to get the shift button if we are pressing the shift button. So we're going to drag off this as my item drag and drop, and we're going to get shift. And this is of course a boolean if we are pressing the shift button or not. So we're going to place a branch here, and we're going to place the shift button inside the branch. I'm going to take all these things here and we're going to drag it down a little bit. So if we are not pressing the shift button, that means that this is false. We are not pressing. Then we want to place that and create the dragged item widget with the full value that we have. However, if we are pressing the shift button, we want to create a widget. And this is going to be counter widget, because we want to place the counter widget on our screen. And we are going to take the return value here and add to viewport. And to ensure that it is on top, we're going to twirl this down and change this Z order to 1. And we're going to drag this down and place it into the return node. So we have a return node on that. I'm going to drag off these two guys here, item name and item amount, because this is the ones we need as well. So we need the item name. I'm going to place that in there so we have the item name. We also need the item amount, and as this is a text field, we're not able to convert it straight away into an integer. So we will have to first convert it into a string, and then from a string we can pass it into the integer connection. An amount here. So we need one for the amount and one for the starting amount, and this is going to be the same value. Next, we need to pass in from what widget the item is dragged and to what widget the item is being dragged. And that is the from and to widgets. In the to widget, we are putting the reference to self, as this is the drop zone widget where we want to create the dragged item. And then we need to have the from widget, and this is going to be the original widget here. So this is what's going into this one. So the original widget going to from widget, and the self is going to widget. So we're going to try to get this a little bit cleaned up. So let's compile and save this, and we're going to do the same thing here, but we're going to do it in the left drop box. So we're going to open up our left drop box and go into the graph. And we're just going to do the same thing here. Drag this out a little bit. We're going to get the shift button. We're going to, let's see, pull that up. We're going to create a branch in there. We're going to get our shift, or we're pressing our shift button. If we're not, we are creating the dragged item widget. We're adding it to the scroll box, and that is what we're doing there. However, if we are pressing the shift button, we want to create widget. And this is of course going to be the counter widget. And we're going to add this to viewport. And we're going to place a 1 in the Z order, and then we're going to drag this to the return value. There we go. And we're going to get our reference to self and place that in to widget. Where are we dragging to? And then we're going to take our original widget. We can drag that into from widget. do a rerouting node here just to get it out of the way a little bit. Drag this back, and we're going to get the item name and place that into item name. We're going to get the item amount, and we're going to say toString. And this is going to go into amount and into starting amount. Then of course I can remove one of these. I didn't do it here. I can remove that. I can drag it straight from this one instead. One less node to worry about. Save and compile. Compile and save. We actually don't need to worry so much about the drop boxes anymore here, so we can close the left drop box and the right drop box. We're going to start working in our counter widget. So before we start working on the onClicked for the confirm, I want to go up here to the add to amount function. We're going to double click on this one. So why do I want to look at this? Well, we want to make sure that we are not passing above the starter amount, right? I want to know if this value here, the amount plus the amount to add value, is greater than the starting amount. So if this value is greater than the starting amount, let's do a branch here. There we go. And we're going to drag the true or false into that. We're going to unhook this guy. And we're going to make a copy of him. There we go. So you can place the true in there and the false in there. So if the amount plus the amount to add is greater than the starting amount, we want the amount to become the starting amount. However, if it's not greater, then we want the amount plus the amount to add to be equal to the amount, the new amount. And we're going to grab a executable order here and grab that and put that into the branch. Compile, save that. We're going to go back to our event graph. So we're going to go down to the bottom here to our onClick confirm. Let's get a copy of the from widget. This widget is where are we dragging from. I'm going to cast this to right Dropbox. If this cast fails, then it's coming from the left Dropbox. Cast to left Dropbox. And we're going to go and drag that and place that into the object. We can place that in between those two. And we're going to grab from the confirm into the cast to right Dropbox. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to get as right Dropbox, and we want to get the scroll box. So this is where we want to place our dragged item widgets. And we are going to promote this to a variable. This is the from scroll box. Right? However, if it's not the right Dropbox, then it's the left Dropbox. So we want to get the scroll box from this Dropbox. So now I want to set this to be the scroll box from scroll box. What I can do is I can grab that, push that into the from scroll box, and then I'm going to connect that up there. I can drag this up here. So what do we have? So we're taking our from widget variable, and we cast it first to the right Dropbox and taking the scroll box and setting it to the from scroll box variable. And of course, if the cast fails, we do the same for the left Dropbox. Now, the next thing we want to do, I'm going to grab the to widget. So which widget are we passing it to? Right? So we're going to cast it to the left Dropbox on the right side. Because if it's right here, then definitely gonna be left on this side. And same thing down here, where we are passing it to the left Dropbox, then this will definitely be the right Dropbox. And we want to get the scroll box here as well. And we're going to promote this to variable, and this is going to be called the to scroll box. Connect these two guys up, and we're going to actually do the same thing here. So we're going to get scroll box, and we're going to copy this one because we are using the same variable for both of these guys. Now we have two lines, depending on from which widget we are dragging from. So we get the right Dropbox and the left Dropbox, and of course we're getting the corresponding Dropbox in the next line. And this is actually the only two line street we're gonna have here. We're gonna connect these guys up further down here to make sure that we don't do double work on everything. So before we start creating items and placing them into the scroll box, I would like to check if we already have an item with the same name in the scroll box. And this is to make sure we won't have two lines of items with the same name. And of course, if we have another line with the same name, I want to update the item amount. So we're going to create a function up here, and we're going to call this, it's going to be a quite long name, where we'll call it find existing row change amount. Let's grab our to scroll box where we want to place items into. We're going to get the node called get all children. So this node is giving us an array of all the children that is inside this scroll box. We're going to get a for each loop here. I'm going to connect our return value. And let's connect these guys up. So now we have an array of all the elements that are children to the scroll box. And we want to now cast this to a dragged item, right? We need to cast it to dragged item in order to be able to get the values stored inside it. So as a dragged item, we have the item name. We want to get that. And we also want to get the amount. We want to take this item name and compare it with the item name we were getting through the drag and drop operation. If they have the same name, then we have a duplicate. So we're going to do a branch here. We'll connect our true or false statement. Connect that up there. So if this is false, we don't want to do anything, right? But if it's true, we want to do a couple of things. First of all, we want to update the item amounts. We're going to take the amount here. We're going to make this into an integer first of all. First thing is to string, and then the next step is going to be to integer. There we go. So let's get the amount we want to add to the existing item. Let's add the two values. And now we want to set the total amount back into the widget. Let's get a node here to show that this is where it's going, like that. And we're going to drag from our integer into the item amount, and we're going to get a automatic converter for that. So that is true. So now we have set and updated the item amount inside the dragged item. widget. All right. Now we want to do one more thing. We want to make sure that everybody understands that we actually already changed the amount. We don't need to do much more than that. So we're going to create a variable called row found. And this is going to be of a Boolean type. We're going to drag it out. We're just going to set it to true. This is basically so we can go outside this function and say, hey, we found a row, we updated a row, so please continue with that information in mind, right? So that is this function. We're going to compile, we're going to save, and then we're going to go back to our event graph. Let's drag out our function, found existing row changed amount. And we're going to connect that to our setters. So now we are pushing these guys together to the same line. So you only have one row to work with. All right. I'm going to take a branch here, and we're going to connect that. And we're going to take our newly created row found Boolean, connect it into that. So did we find a Boolean? Yes or no? So from the false, if we start with the false, we're going to create a widget. And we're going to create a dragged item widget. Of course, because we didn't find a row, so therefore we have to create a new row. And we're just going to pass in the information we need. We need the item name. We need to have the current widget, and that is, of course, the to widget. Then we need the item amount here. So we're going to take our amount, get the amount. I'm going to push that into that one, to the item amount. I'm going to get that automatic. There we go. That's the information we need to have there. And then we're going to place it into a scroll box. So we're going to grab our to scroll box. Get the scroll box, and we're going to add child. There we go. So the next thing we want to do is we want to calculate how much is remaining. So we want to know how much we're going to leave in our previous scroll box, the from scroll box, right? So let's drag out a calculation here. We're going to take the amount, get the amount. We're going to get the starting amount. And we're going to do a subtraction, starting amount, subtract amount. And we want to check so this is not 0. For example, we're moving everything in a way. We decided to change our mind. We wanted to drag off 5 out of 10. However, when it comes down to it, we want to move all 10. So if this is less or equal to 0, if that is true, I'm going to do a branch here. If that is true, then we don't want to create a widget. However, if it is false, we want to create a widget and place it into the from box here. So we can do that right here. Take a from scroll box, the scroll box we are dragging from, and we're going to create, we can drag that over there. We're going to create a widget. And this is false, so of course it is not less or equal to than 0. So then we want to create a widget. And this is going to be a dragged item widget. And we can take the item name here. And now we're going to take the amount that comes out of this return value of the subtraction. This is the amount we want to place into this widget. And the current widget is now going to be the from widget, because this is the the widget we are placing this into. So let's connect this add child into this one. We're gonna do a little comment on this. Calculating remainder. There we go. And of course, we're going now to add the child to the from scroll box as well. So the last thing we want to do now is that we are going to remove our counter widget from the screen. So if we go out and we take this and we add a remove from parent node, remove from parent, and the target is self. Take a look here from the start. We're casting to our from widget. I'm gonna do that. Casting from widget, and storing from scroll box into variable. All right. And then we are casting to widget and storing to scroll box into variable. So I want to take these and let's see, color. I'm going to drag this into black. This one as well. Okay, so we're casting from widget and storing the from scroll box into variable. We're casting to widget and storing the scroll box into variable. Here we are finding if we have already a dragged item widget. There we go. Make that into black. And then we have, see already that we are missing one thing. We're going to deal with that in a second. Creating dragged item widget and adding to scroll box. There we go. Now, if we already found an existing row, we want to pass this true into this branch, and basically I'm saying don't create a widget, but do the next part. I'm going to grab that and we're going to move that down a little bit, drag that up a little bit, get these guys down there. And here we are commenting and adding dragged item widget to from scroll box. And let's see there. And of course, if this is true, if it is 0, the amount is 0, we don't want to create the widget. We just pass this straight through and removing from parent. Let's see, it's gonna add these colors. That one. I like the black version better than the white version. I don't know why. It's just aesthetics, and you can actually see the connection a little bit better. All right, there we go. So that's it. Let's compile and save and see if it works. It should work. Let's go into our play button. Drag this over. Okay, so we take the alpha 20 and we just, or CC16, and we drag it over and see it works fine. And works fine back there. Now I'm going to press the shift button and take this alpha 20 and drag it over. And so we got the 20. So I want to have 10 there instead. I just want to drag 10. Let's confirm that. Wow, I got the alpha 10 and alpha 10. Nice. Now I want to drag 5 over here. See, alpha got 15 and alpha has 5. No, there's still one problem we have to deal with. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. Before that, I want to test one more time. I'm going to drag the echo and do 97 and confirm. And that works fine. Get 2. Now, we have a problem. If I take this echo and drag it over here, boom, I got 97 and 2. And the reason is that when we are not pushing the shift button, we're not getting the functionality of checking if we already have a widget with the same name. So we will have to create that in both the right and left drop zones as well. What we're going to do now is we're going to go back into our counter widget here. And we're going to find existing row change amount function. And we're just going to Control C, copy that. We're going to go into our right Dropbox, go into the graph, and we're going to paste our function into this. And there it is. So first of all, the row found doesn't mean anything here, so we need to create that variable row found. And of course it's a boolean, so we're going to set that, drag that out, and we're going to set it to true. The second thing I want to do here is I want to remove the to scroll box, and we want to add our own scroll box that we have here. There we go. Now, the next thing that is a issue is that we have an item name here and we have an item amount, and that doesn't mean anything in this context. So we have to update with our own variables. So we're going to remove the item name there first of all, and we can remove the item amount as well. So let's go to our on drop here. And what we're going to do here now is we are going to get a couple of new variables. Let's create a item amount. And this is going to be a text version, and then we want to set the item name. And this is also going to be a text. Let's set these so we have them here. Grab that there, and also the item name. So we are going to use these two to set them. So the item amount and the item name. We're setting those. So what we can do now, we can drag these guys out so we can remove all the extra connections that we have everywhere. And let's see, this is going to be an amount, so we can drag the item amount and place that in there. And this is going to be item name. There we go. So at least we have a little less connections everywhere. So let's go into find the existing row. And in here, we want to have the item name. And we're going to grab that and push that into this. So that is comparing item name with item name. And then we're going to have the item amount. And we're going to convert this into a string. To string. And then we're going to take from the string to integer. There we go. Connect those two. So now this should work on this side. So let's go back to on drop. So let's connect these guys up. So first of all, I see I need to connect this, set it to the branch. Then we're going to grab our function that we just created. and we'll connect it to the find existing row change amount. Okay, so we are running this, and are we finding a row? Bring our row found here, and we're gonna make a branch. So did we find a row? No, we didn't. So it's false. We're gonna go and create our dragged item widget. If we did, we need, first of all, we need to make sure that row found is set back to false, so it's ready for the next time we're dragging off here. And then this is going to go straight into return node. So we're going to compile that. I'm going to save it. Now we're going to test it out and see if it works. So let's press the play button. And we're going to take a press shift here and grab this Caesar and let go. We're going to release. And now we have 13 here, and we got 3 on this side. If this works, that means that I can just push this over and it should turn into 16, which it does. So it's perfect. Okay, so let's do the same thing for the left drop box. Okay, so open the left drop box into graph. So let's create the variable straight away. So we're going to have item name, and we're going to have item amount. And we're going to have row found. And this is going to be a Boolean type. There we go. And we're going to connect these and set that up straight away. I'm going to set it, and I'm going to set the item amount as well. Connect these guys up here. Drag these guys off a little bit. I'm going to get the item name and the item amount. Boom. Let's see, we're going to take the item name. Let's see. Nope, this is going to be item amount. Get the item amount. Connect that into these two. And then we're going to get the item name. Connect it into item name. Same thing down here. So we get the item name. Can place that into that one, and item amount into that one. There we go. Let's clean this up a little bit. All right, let's create our function. So basically, we can take this function here, go in here and just place it in there. So there's a copy and paste function. Now we want to, everything is almost the same. I'm gonna delete that one. We're gonna take our scroll box 90 is the one we want here. We're dragging off. We are getting not this item name. We're gonna get this item name. Connect that in there. We're gonna take this item amount. Grab that and push that in there. It is the same item amount we're setting, and we're just gonna make sure that we have the right row that we are setting here. I don't know if it matters, but yeah, just for safety. File that. We're gonna save it. Go out to the left drop box to on drop. And what we're gonna do here, of course, is we're gonna drag this guys out. And so now we're just gonna hook it up like we did last time. So we're gonna drag our function out here. Connect that. And then we're gonna get our row found. Get that. Take a branch. Hook that up. And get the function into our branch. So did we find a row? If we didn't, we need to create a dragged item widget. If we did, we need to clear out the row found before we are returning the node here. That's it. So now everything should work exactly as it should. So we can push that play button. Let's grab a couple here. I'm gonna take this and divide it over. We're gonna divide one more so we have a couple of things to play around with. So if I move from Caesar here, I move it to the right side, it updates, and if I move echo to the left side, it updates with the full count. So now everything is working as it should. So this was my tutorial on how to create a drag and drop widget with split stacking as well. So if you like this content, please give me that thumbs up, and I would love if you push that subscribe button as well. I will be back with more Unreal content. Until next time, I'm SpotPop Gaming. Have a great day.